We're close. There we go. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to the River Road Unitarian Universalist Congregation. I'm Reverend Karen Rasmussen, your affiliate community minister. If this is your first time here in person, we welcome you. We hope you'll stop by the welcome table so we can get to know you and get connected. For those watching live on YouTube, please feel free to join in the chat with our online host. If you're watching this at a later date and have questions, please visit our website to learn how to connect with us. We have a load of announcements this morning, so fasten your seatbelts. Covenant and conflict, saying the hard things. Congregational conversation today after the service. Disagreements and conflict happen all the time. Sometimes tension and friction and conflict can produce something new and beautiful and better than what existed before. And sometimes we avoid saying the hard things so we can just keep the peace and not hurt each other's feelings. What if there was a middle way? How do we say the hard things to one another at RRUUC? What happens when we don't all agree on a particular topic? Come to a congregational conversation about all this and share your thoughts on this important topic. The conversation is this morning after the service right here in the sanctuary. Check your River Road membership and voting status. To be eligible to vote for the candidates for the Board of Trustees, the Leadership and Nominations Committee, and the Settled Minister Search Committee, as well as to vote on any issues that may be presented at this year's annual meeting, which is scheduled for June 1, our bylaws state that members need to have made a financial contribution of any amount to the operating fund within 12 months, but no later than 60 days before the annual meeting. In other words, you need to make that contribution in order to vote before April 2nd. To contribute, go to our website, rruuc.org, and click on the Give Online button and select Operating Fund 24-25, and that's the fund you put it into. Contact the bookkeeper, Susan, with any questions that you have on that, but it's important to do that so you can vote. New RRUUC members must also have signed the membership book no later than 60 days before the meeting. If you would like to vote but have not yet signed, please contact Reverend Connie to set up a private book signing before March 31st. There's a second page. 40 youth guests and 4 adult chaperones from Johannes Zygmunt Unitarian High School Choir in Transylvania are staying in our area from April 11th to the 15th and will lead our service at River Road on Sunday, April 13th. We are seeking generous families from our congregation to host these wonderful students for 4 nights. This unique opportunity for a weekend exchange program will build connections and support our youth choir visitors. Please contact Ursula Scott or Reverend Connie for more information. And hey, there is a limited amount of time for pulpit announcements. Make sure that you are staying up to date with everything going on in this happening community by subscribing to our e-weekly. And you have to read the e-weekly in order to know what's going on. There's a sign up for hint, hint, hint. There's a sign up on the welcome table on the website homepage, or you can email news@rruuc.org. Details for all of our programs and upcoming events can be found on our website. Phew.
We begin our time together by lighting our chalice, the chosen symbol of our faith. These words by Ben Ogilvy.
We meet as members of a spiritual community. We covenant to engage each other with kindness, courage, and love.
Say it again. I don't think they heard you.
They did.
They sure? Okay.
Caught me off guard there. Wasn't sure you heard it. What do you say we sing a song this morning? Yay? Why don't we rise in body or spirit and let's sing Here We Have Gathered, hymn 360.
Good morning. I'm Laura Piervincenzi, Associate Director of Religious Education, and I have a question. Has anyone here ever had a conflict with someone? Anyone? Anyone? Yeah. It's pretty universal. And this year, through the Peace of Mind curriculum, the children in kindergarten through 5th grade are learning about mindfulness practices that help them to navigate conflict. And in a moment, we're going to share a video from Peace of Mind called Conflict Cat that some of the children have seen. And it will allow you to see what they are learning and maybe get some tips yourself. But before we do that, I'm going to have Linda Ryden here speak about this because she is the creator of this curriculum, and she can tell you a little bit about how Conflict Cat came to be.
Thanks, Laura. Good morning, everybody. It's so weird to be up here and talking instead of down there and singing. So I'm really excited that we're sharing this video with you all as part of the Peace of Mind curriculum, and we're really excited to be sharing Peace of Mind at River Road this year. And the conflict cat came about because when I started to create what would become Peace of Mind about 20 years ago, I was intending to teach conflict resolution. And so I read a lot of books about conflict resolution, and I started to teach lessons, and the kids really learned how to work out conflicts in school, in class. But when they went outside and they went to the playground, it was just back to the fighting. And I was really puzzled, like, why wasn't this working? And they really knew what to do. And I realized after talking to kids and watching at the playground that what they really needed was to learn how to calm themselves down when they were angry. Because when they were angry, they couldn't really remember any of the things that they had learned in class. So that's why I started to teach mindfulness as a way to help kids to kind of regulate their emotions and recognize what was happening in their bodies when they got angry. And it worked so well that I started to wonder, why was it so helpful? And so I started to learn about the brain science behind mindfulness. And what I learned was very simple, that there's a part of your brain called the amygdala that takes over when it thinks that you're in danger. And so when we get angry, our amygdala often thinks that we're in danger, even though we usually aren't. And it shuts down the parts of your brain that really are thinking. And so when we get angry, we often do things that we wouldn't normally do. And then later we think, what was I thinking? And turns out you weren't. So I created the Conflict Cat as a way of teaching kids how to start from the beginning, learn mindfulness practices, learn the brain science that would help them to understand what happens in their brains when they get angry and how that affects their behavior. And then, after that, taught some of the tools and the conflict resolution skills that they would need to work out conflicts. But I really learned that you had to start there. So that's what the Conflict Cat is about, and you'll be hearing about that now. Why not? All right.
So today we're going to be learning about something called the Conflict Cat. The Conflict Cat is a 3-step process to help you to work out conflicts peacefully. In another lesson, we learned about the conflict escalator and how that helps us to notice how a conflict can just start out as a small problem, but because of the things that people say or do, it can escalate or go up the conflict escalator. And that's where we can get into some trouble. So today we're going to find out what the CAT stands for. So the first letter of the conflict CAT is C, and that stands for calm down. Usually that's something that's really hard to do, but we've been learning some skills that can help. We've been learning mindfulness practices, and we've been learning brain science. So we understand that when we get angry, our amygdalas are taking over our brains, and that we can use slow, deep breaths to help to calm the amygdala. That's the first step in working out conflicts. Unless our prefrontal cortex is in charge, we're not going to be able to do any of the other things we need to do to work out the conflict peacefully. Our amygdalas don't know how to work out conflicts peacefully. The A in the conflict CAT stands for apologize. We learned in our lesson on whether apologies were muffle or awful about how to apologize well, how to make sure that you mean it, own it, fix it, and then let it go. That means that all of the people involved in the conflict have done something to escalate the conflict. And if we can apologize for our role in escalating the conflict, it makes it a lot easier to de-escalate and work it out peacefully. So the new thing we're going to learn today is the T in the conflict CAT. The T stands for toolbox, and this is not the kind of toolbox that we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about tools that you can use to work out a conflict, things like compromising or taking turns or sharing. Do you remember when we watched the video of the kids who were arguing about whether to play Monopoly or Scrabble? We're going to watch that video again, and we're going to see the conflict CAT in action.
Hey guys, let's play Monopoly. I've just got the new game and I've been dying to play it.
That sounds great. I love Monopoly.
Yes, Monopoly is my favorite game.
No way. Monopoly takes way too long to play. Let's do Scrabble instead.
Yeah, Scrabble's awesome. I'm really good.
That's because you're a really good speller.
Thanks.
What are you guys talking about? Monopoly's the coolest game. Scrabble's for geeks.
Who are you calling a geek? You're a loser.
Did you notice how the conflict was escalating? What caused the conflict to go up the conflict escalator? What did people say or do? Now we're going to watch the rest of the skit. Raise your hand if you notice anybody using the conflict cat.
Hey, you guys, we're going up the conflict escalator.
Oh, you're right. There's nothing but trouble at the top of the conflict escalator.
Why don't we calm down a bit? Let's take some deep breaths.
Hey, Charlie. I'm sorry I called you a loser. I didn't mean it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said Scrabble's for geeks. I like Scrabble. I was just really excited to play Monopoly, and I got carried away.
I have an idea. Why don't we take turns? We can play Monopoly today, and then tomorrow we can go over to my house and play Scrabble.
That's a great idea!
Taking turns is one of the 8 tools in the conflict toolbox. There are probably a million ways to work out a problem peacefully, but today we're going to talk about 8 of them that you can try to remember to use in a conflict. The 8 that we have in our conflict toolbox are taking turns, sharing, being kind, and that just means that sometimes you might just let the other person have their way. You could leave it to chance. Chance is just another word for luck. Things like flipping a coin or playing rock, paper, scissors are examples of leaving it to chance. You could compromise. Like if you're arguing over what kind of pizza to have, maybe you decide to eat pasta instead. As long as you both like pasta, that's a compromise. In a compromise, nobody gets exactly what they want, but you find something that you can both agree on. Another tool you can use is pausing the conflict. Sometimes you're just too mad. You might have taken some deep breaths, but your amygdala is still in charge of your brain and you can't calm down. So maybe you need to go away from each other, take a little time, let yourself calm down, and then come back and work things out. Another tool in the toolbox is called skip the conflict. Sometimes whatever you're having a conflict about isn't worth going up the conflict escalator over. Or maybe you're trying to calm down and work things out, but the other person isn't. Sometimes you can just decide to walk away and skip the conflict because that is what's best for you. Sometimes you might have tried a lot of different ways to work out your conflict, but you just can't do it. So you might need to ask somebody else for help. Okay, so now you know what the conflict cat is and how to use it. Next time, we'll practice. See you then.
Okay, now I invite children and their teachers to go to their classrooms. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. My name is Pete Epanchin, and I think that what we just saw was one of the reasons why we come here and bring our kids here, the mindfulness, the conflict cats. My amazing wife, Becky, and I have been coming to River Road off and on for about 8 years. And our kids are in the religious education program. They sing in the youth choir. And our family is now part of this church's community. Yet we've only scratched the surface of the very wide variety of communities that make up River Road UU. And this congregation is really a part of our family's story. I'd say that all of us here have our own story of spirituality and religion, and each of our stories are very important. My wife grew up in the Unitarian Church in the heartland of Unitarianism in New England. And my story started off in a Lutheran church. That was long ago, and a lot has happened along the way to bring me here today and to be a part of this congregation. And today, I'm comfortable in saying that I'm an atheist. And at the same time, I really, really value my religious upbringing. In America, religion is such an important cultural touchstone and point of relevance, and I'm grateful for my understanding of Christianity and religion, such that it's not a mysterious black box to me. I know what I am not getting by choosing not to participate in one of America's more mainstream religions. And so one of the things that I love about coming here is that I'm able to give my kids a pathway as they start off on their own spiritual and religious journeys. I don't know where that path will take them, but I do know that the community that they're offered here, and the social justice programs and the positive values that are reinforced here, the many caring adults who are part of their lives and their friends that are all part of this community, these are all positive forces that will help to guide them along the way. And I also hope that their experience here helps to demystify religion for them, and that their experiences here can give them the courage and the confidence to come to their own conclusions, when inevitably somebody will come to them with their own religious dogma of whatever flavor, and they'll have their ability to come to their own conclusions. I take inspiration from River Road as a place of community. It's a place of worship, of celebration, and of love. It's a place of social justice. I believe that River Road Unitarian Universalist Congregation is inspiring for my kids and for all of the kids that are here. And they're all on their own important paths of a spiritual journey. And so these are some of the reasons why we come back here. And that's why we have pledged to support this congregation. What are the reasons that bring you here? What are the reasons that bring you back to this church? Maybe it's the community that sparks joy for you. Maybe it's the social justice, particularly in these dark times of today. Or maybe it's unanswered questions that you might have. Whatever the reasons, we are all here, and we all have our own important journeys.
Thank you, Pete, for that wonderful reflection. My name is Laura Akinbami. I'm a member of the Financial Stewardship Committee, and I'd like to provide an update of the pledge amount so far, which is $475,209. And that is nearly 48% of our way to the goal of $1 million. So I want to give a heartfelt thank you to all who pledged what you could in this time of uncertainty, and those of you who heard the call to be angels and increased your pledges. Next week is the last week of the campaign, and another number we track is the number of pledges. So far we have 98, which is fewer than we had this time last year. We understand that facing the current chaos makes looking into the financial future difficult, but you know you can change your pledge at any time, and you can pledge any amount that feels right for you. A pledge is a promise to give the gift to RRUUC in the next fiscal year from July 2025 to June 2026. And promise is what we need right now. We lean into the promise of RRUUC. We fall back on it, we rest in it, and we build it together. Please add your pledge and your promise to this wonderful community. You can pledge online or see us in the fellowship hall after the service. Thank you.
Thank you. Our meditation this morning comes from Julian Jamaica Sato. In this community, we hold hope close. We don't always know what's going to come next, but that cannot dissuade us. We don't always know just what to do, but that will not mean that we are lost in the wilderness. We rely on the certainty beneath, the foundation of our values and our ethics. We are the people who return to love like the North Star and the truth that we are greater together than we are alone. Our hope does not live in some glimmer of a distant, distant future. Rather, we know the way to the world of which we dream, and by the covenant and the movement forward of one right action and then the next, we know that one day we will arrive home. We invite you now to speak out loud the names and the people and the places or things that you are holding in your heart today. Katie O'Grady and her husband Kevin.
For those we have named, for those whose names we do not know, and for those whose names are carefully guarded in our hearts, let's sing together, though I may speak with bravest fire. In support of our congregation and the community beyond, it is time for our morning offering. To learn more about why we give and the programs that we support, or to give online, please visit our website at rruuc.org. Or if you'd like to give by phone, the text to give number is 73256. Again, that's 73256. Type RRUUC in the amount that you would like to give. We are mindful of the fact that we draw water from wells that we did not dig, and we pick fruit from trees that we did not plant. This is as it should be, so long as we dig and plant for those who come after us. If this is your first time visiting, please feel free to let the plate pass you by. Your presence is gift enough indeed. Our offering will now be gratefully received. Thank you for your time and your talent and your treasure.
Good morning. I'm Rob Neuter, and I've been asked to provide a reflection for some context this morning. There's no more difficult conversation to have in America today than the discussion of racism and how to dismantle the ingrained system of white supremacy. I have been struggling with this issue for a long time, maybe a lifetime. 8 years ago, I was asked to give a reflection to the congregation on the Beloved Conversations course that I had taken, a course which further opened my already opened eyes to the state of race relations in America. The discernment that I use in crafting that reflection caused me to think back another 10 years when we had a ministerial intern, Amanda Pape, who gave a sermon called The Tip of the Iceberg. In it, she posited that racism was like an iceberg threatening our society, and that what we see is only that piece that is above the waterline. It's only a small fraction of the enormous problem lurking below. When Amanda gave that sermon, my reaction was that she was overstating the extent of the problem. I believed that over the years since the passage of the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act and the multiple Supreme Court rulings on school desegregation, housing fairness, and other race-related issues, that we had corrected most of the egregious ills of racism. In between the time of Amanda's sermon in 2007 and my taking the Beloved Conversations class in 2017, the racially motivated violence perpetrated by ordinary American citizens and by law enforcement had taken the lives of hundreds and probably thousands of Black and brown Americans. What I had learned over time and through the Beloved Conversations class caused me to realize that I was terribly wrong when I thought Amanda had overstated her case. I apologize to Amanda for failing to buy into her hypothesis, and I admitted I was wrong. The realization that racial hatred and violence was prevalent in 2007, that it remained prevalent in 2017, and that it exists in our country today is now indisputably obvious. Let me give you one statistic. In 2021, hate crimes reached the highest level recorded over the previous 30 years, with 10,840 reported incidents affecting 12,822 victims, a 25% increase over the previous year. Many of us who consider ourselves liberals or progressives face a moral conundrum relating to the role that race issues play in our political discourse today. If one considers the results of the 2024 presidential election with a plurality, not a mandate, of voters supporting the winner, despite his barely veiled racist pronouncements, what does that say about us as a country? Some strategists have suggested that for Democrats to appeal to middle America and regain power at the national level, we must back away from issues that are perceived as elitist and offensive to the majority of the population in the heartland. They say we must stop proposing policy actions to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion in any form of affirmative action. The question I have is, do I want to be part of a movement that will abandon its moral and ethical values in order to regain power? This is something I cannot do in good conscience. When asked about how much progress has been made in this regard, my answer is that we have not come nearly far enough, and we have a long, long way to go to arrive at a just and equitable state of righteousness within America. What is needed are frank and difficult conversations, especially between white people and people of color, starting with the admission that despite our liberal views, we white folks have ingrained biases. We also have benefited from the institutional aspects of white supremacy. And many of those who have benefited tend to consider their preferential treatment as an entitlement, which will be diminished by the act of extending similar considerations to others. This is not a zero-sum game. Science has shown that diversity, equity, and inclusion is not about conferring favoritism on selected groups of people. It's about expanding inclusion to all, including those who have been victims of the exclusion in the past. We can only experience the catharsis that is needed to rid society of its traditionally preferential systems by engaging in hard conversations in which white people must largely be the listener. So let us start having these difficult conversations which are needed and which will take soul-searching and deep discernment. We must truly listen at a deep level and not project our assumptions on what we think others need and what must be done to solve their problems. The act of listening, absorbing, and understanding the pain and suffering of those who have been unjustly treated is the most important role for those of us who have gained the advantages of exclusivity-driven systems. So I'm going to close with a short reading by Margaret Wheatley, who is a noted sociologist and management consultant, and it was the quote I used in my reflection 8 years ago. But I believe it's equally true, if not more true today. What if we were to be together and listen to each other's comments with a willingness to expose rather than confirm our own beliefs and opinions? What if we were to willingly listen to one another with the awareness that we see the world in unique ways, and with the expectation that I could learn something new if I listen for the differences rather than the similarities? We have this opportunity many times in a day, every day. What might we see? What might we learn? What might we create together if we become this kind of listener, one who enjoys the differences and welcomes in disturbance? We know we would be delightfully startled at how much difference there is, and we would be wonderfully comforted by how much closer we become, because every time we listen well, we move towards one another. From our new thoughts and our new companions, we would all become wiser.
I think so. You heard that, didn't you? So I need you to bear with me this morning. Feeling a little peaked, as the elders would say. But I'm still here, and I have something to tell you. So we're gonna do this thing anyway. And I want to start by asking you a question. How many of you have ever heard of the word covenant? Almost everybody. How many of you know what it means? Little fewer, but more. I mean, still a few. Well, it comes from the Latin convenere, which means to go with. And it's an agreement between two, or among more people, where they promise things to one another. And it includes stipulations and privileges and responsibilities. Now, doesn't that sound a lot like a contract? Not exactly. Here's the difference. Contracts are for a specific period of time, and they're based on offer and acceptance. I will do this if you will do this. I accept your offer, and I will do this in return. And contracts are written to protect the interests of the parties who are contracting. Covenants, on the other hand, are open-ended. Covenants are designed to protect the relationship among and between the people, not to promote their interests, although that may happen as well, but to protect the relationship. So what are some examples of covenants? Shout them out. Marriage. Anybody live in a neighborhood with rules that say you must have a 1.5-inch Japanese maple in your front yard, like I did? Yes. HOA covenants. Treaties are covenants in a way. So there are all kinds of covenants. We think of the word, though, in a religious context often, stemming from the Hebrew Bible. The covenant between God and Abraham, right? So that is an example of a vertical covenant between one and the divine. But there are also horizontal covenants, covenants that are made among and between regular people, multiple people in a space. And these covenants can be aspirational. We covenant to, I don't know, have a world where everyone is free. That's aspirational, right? They can be mission or value oriented. And this one kind of hurts my heart a little bit to use it as an example, because right now I kind of feel like it's being trampled on. But the Constitution, the preamble of the Constitution, is a covenant. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. That's a covenant. It speaks to the mission of what we're trying to do here. Another kind of covenant that you can have is one that is operational. It says, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Now, those get kind of unwieldy, right? They don't feel very relational. So what you usually see instead are bylaws. Bylaws are a type of covenant in a way. There are covenants of right relations, where we say this is what it means to be in right relationship with one another. And we have behavioral covenants. I will behave X way. I promise to do that in this community. I promise to do these things. So what does that mean for us as Unitarian Universalists? You've probably heard that we are a covenantal faith and not a creedal faith. Does anybody know what that means? Yes, this is a test. You raised your hand, Stephanie. Exactly. A creed is something that is handed down. Think of a litmus test. You must adopt this creed. Thank you for letting me put you on the spot. You must adopt this creed and believe these things to be one of us. In covenantal faith, we are together because we choose to be together. And the way we choose to be together is written in our covenant. Sounds pretty easy, right? Now, it would be easy if Unitarian Universalism had been around for 500 or 600 years or 1,000 years. But as you know, we come from two different faith traditions, and they were a little bit different. So on the Unitarian side, we had our Puritan, well, you know what? No, your Puritan ancestors. They weren't mine. That was not my we, right? Puritan ancestors who came to this country and decided this is the way we want to be in our churches. We want our churches to be communities of believers. And in 1648, you've heard me talk about the Cambridge Platform, ta-da, they set out the rules for the way they wanted to behave together. And yes, there's some structural stuff in here that says, you know, the women will do the meals and taking care of people, and the men will be the teachers and the ministers, and yeah, all that stuff. And it says, we agree to come together in truth, seeking justice, following the path of the Lord. Because remember, early Unitarians were Christians, in fact. But what happens if we didn't agree? Way back in 1648, they thought about that. Because hard things come up. Conflict isn't always bad. Disagreement isn't always bad. So they put a plan in place. If I have a problem with you, I need to go talk to you, and we need to work it out. Remember the cat, the conflict cat? I'm going to own it, I'm going to fix it, I'm going to let it go. If we can't work it out, then I'm going to go get somebody else to come with me, because maybe this person can't hear me. So I'm going to ask you to come with me, and we're going to go talk to this person. It's not ganging up on them, it's trying to work out the conflict. If that doesn't work, then we probably need to engage an elder in the congregation or the minister to say, hey, this is starting to get a little out of hand. We can't work this out. Can you help us? And they'll sit down with the person and say, your behavior falls outside of our covenant. We love you. We want you to be here with us. Can you adapt your behavior? Can you see that you are causing harm to another? If the person says, oh, yeah, you're right. I stepped outside of bounds. I'll come back. Everything is fine. All is forgiven, and life goes on. No grudges. If the person can't let it go, if they're not willing to come back into covenant, it doesn't mean that the congregation no longer loves you, but it might mean that maybe this isn't the place for you. And that's okay. We love you, and maybe this isn't the place, because we promote anti-racism work. We promote immigrant rights. We promote fill in the blank, right? And if a person doesn't like that, that's okay. Doesn't make them a bad person. It means they choose not to be here. Sometimes, though, that person can't let it go. And they keep pushing, and they keep pressing. And they keep running around to folks saying, they won't let me have my way. I wanted to play Monopoly and they won't let me play. Then what do? You still love them. You don't want to make waves. They've done so many other amazing, wonderful things in the congregation. And it's come to a point where their presence is harmful to multiple people. And you may need to ask them to step away. And that's hard. That's really, really hard. And I believe in my heart it's the most loving thing you can possibly do. Does it sound messy? Of course it's messy. Of course it is. Does it challenge what we think of when we think of individual rights? Of course it does. But we're going to talk more about that in a minute. So that's what the Unitarians were doing. The Universalists, on the other hand, way back in 1794, they adopted what was called the Philadelphia Plan, which basically combined the notion that congregations govern themselves with a statement of belief. So for them, they set this up in a hierarchy. There were local congregations that ran themselves, but there were also regions and districts, state conventions, and the General Convention. They had a hierarchy. And it stayed that way until 1961, when we came together. bit of trivia, there are still some Universalist conventions that exist at the state level, but there are very few. Trivia. So the two organizations come together and they say, what are we going to do with this? Do we want to have a covenant? I know. Let's have a covenant, but we'll call it principles. So we wrote some principles. The original principles, which don't exactly look like those that many of you are familiar with, because they talked about men and property owners and believers in Christ together. But they were principles, and this was the way we were going to be together. And that we needed to come together in this covenant. And when we disagreed, we'd come back together. We'd still use the Cambridge platform. We'd still try to work this out with one another for the good of the community. So now, let's fast forward. We know that those principles have been modified a couple of times because that is actually required by our bylaws, that every 15 years we have to review them. Fast forward to a time not that many years ago when individualism was, I don't want to say running amok, but it was a pretty prominent thing in Unitarian Universalism writ large. It seemed like we kind of forgot our covenantal beginnings. We were in danger of falling into the I church world, the individual's church. And when that happens, nothing good can come of community. Because, like in a contract, everybody's out there looking for their own interests. In his article, The End of iChurch, Reverend Frederick Muir wrote, individualism will not serve the greater good, a principle to which we Unitarian Universalists have committed ourselves. Little to nothing about the ideology and theology of individualism encourages people to work and live together, to create and support institutions that serve common aspirations and beloved principles. Our movement will cease to exist if we're not able to convert from individualism to covenantal, beloved community. This isn't to say that we have to adopt a creed, but what it means is that when it's important, we come together in covenant. You don't have to believe the same things. You don't have to agree on everything, but you do need to agree to the process. So, as Rob said in his reflection, here we are in 2024, wondering how on earth it is possible that a plurality of Americans voted for the president we have now. I don't know. I keep asking myself that every day, and I will admit that there is a part of me that's like, yeah, I'm not surprised. Because in a way, this is what America is for people like me. But we're in this position now where this person is president. And we can wish that he wasn't, but it doesn't change the fact that he is. Right? So that is accepting the democratic process. And then we use that process to get him out of here. To make change. But we can't deny that the thing is true. So yes, this covenantal work, it's messy. This work of disagreement, it's messy. Saying hard things is messy. Rob said a hard thing this morning, and I'm so glad he said it. Because what covenant allows you to do, what covenant creates, is a container. a container where someone can say the hard things, where you can speak your truth. Even if other people don't agree with it, you can speak your truth. Now, whether you get to keep pushing it is another story, but you can speak your truth without fear of retribution, without threats to your intelligence or insults to your being, without fear that people will withhold their friendship or their support from you, without fear that people will withhold their love. You can speak your truth knowing that this is a community that cherishes the right of the individual to speak. Knowing that this is a community where all voices will be heard, and then together, using your covenant, you will design the way forward. It means that you can speak your truth, and maybe you have a disagreement and you work it out, and then there are no holding grudges. None of this 5 years ago, you wouldn't let me be on X committee and I won't let it go. None of that. Imagine how it works in your marriages. What if you said, if I don't get my way, I'm not going to talk to you anymore? If I don't get my way, I'll never say I love you again. If I don't get my way, I'll never kiss you again. That's kind of what we're talking about. Covenant means that you are willing to come back to the table again and again, even when the conversations are hard, even when you don't always agree, but that you are willing to come back to the terms of that covenant and be inside that circle of love. Or as Mandy sent me a text, she said, it's kind of like a shield. And it's a little wonky. And I told her that's okay because we are too. The circle of love can be a little messy sometimes. Sometimes it's not even, it bends, it's warped, it does this stuff, but every one of you is in it. And for those who don't remember where that circle came from, it was from a story that we did on a Spirit Sunday where you all wrote your names on one of those pieces of paper. And we put it together and made a giant circle of love. And it's not big enough to really enclose us all, but imagine that it is. No one is outside the circle of love. No one is outside the container of covenant. You are all here because you choose to be here. By signing the book, by becoming a member, you have agreed that you will be here and that you will be present in the community in a way that is consistent with the River Road Covenant. Now, here's my last question for you. How many of you know where to find the River Road Covenant? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. In many congregations, the covenant is something that is spoken aloud every Sunday. It's embodied, it's living. You look at it all the time, you live it. In others, it's a document that's somewhere on the website if you can find it. Here, it's framed, it's very pretty, and it's out there at the bottom of the staircase. So one of the things we're going to do is make it a little more prominent. Because what I've noticed in my 7, 8, 9 months here is that sometimes you all struggle to say the hard things. Sometimes you struggle to come back together in covenant and in agreement. So what I would like you to do right now is to rise in body or spirit, and let's read together the River Road Covenant, which will appear on the screen. It's a long one, I gotta tell you. You guys love words, which is really surprising because most of the time I hear, can't we make it short? But this one is long. Are we ready? Okay, I'll read the little introduction part. Unanimously approved by congregational vote January 28, 2018. Okay, here we go. River Road Unitarian Universalist Congregation affirms this covenant as a declaration of how we desire to be together. This covenant serves to guide our interactions as we engage with the world as it is and work toward shaping the world as it could be. We draw strength from our diversity and seek to form a beloved community through bonds of community, spirit, and service. We choose connection over isolation and support each other in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. That's not all. I intend to cultivate in myself openness to different viewpoints and approaches, joy and a sense of humor, strength and the courage to act, curiosity about the world around me. I promise to be mindful and considerate in my communications and interactions by listening to understand rather than to judge or prove a point, expressing appreciation of others' efforts, taking responsibility for my actions, trusting that others have good intentions. I commit to sustaining this congregation by giving generously of myself and my resources, supporting and nurturing myself and others, showing gratitude for the blessings of being in community. One more. Together, we pledge to fulfill and renew these promises, beginning again in love when we fall short, in order to nurture our spiritual growth, our congregation, and its larger vision. That's all. Are you living that right now? In your interactions with one another? That's your homework. Ask yourself, am I really living that in all that I do? In my committee work here, when I volunteer, in my interactions with the staff, with other members? Am I living it?
Choir, we're going to try out a new hymn on you, lyrics by our own Jan Elliker. And since you've never heard it before, we'll give you a chance to catch on to it, not just like, psychically know what the words and the notes are. So as the choir gathers, I hope, Hugh, can we put up the first set of words? So the choir is going to sing, so the first paragraph is the refrain, and the second paragraph is the first verse. The choir is going to sing through the refrain and the first verse, and towards the end of that, I would love it if you would stand back up again, and try to remember what you heard and join in. If you don't catch on to everything right away, that's okay. And if there's a part that you think you know, go ahead and sing it out, okay? All right, got it? All right. All right.
Our Unitarian Universalist principles and values call us to live our values out loud, not alone, and it encourages us to be open-minded, open-hearted, spiritual communities helping people to lead lives of justice, love, learning, and hope. Here are a couple ways that you can live your values in the coming week. Shelter Week is March 30th through April 4th. This is our 37th year of providing a week's worth of food and supplies to 2 Interfaith Works women's shelters in Montgomery County. How can you help, you might be asking? Donate food, everything from applesauce cups to casseroles. We have a list of needs. Visit us in the fellowship hall after services or use our sign-up genius found in the e-weekly to sign up for your preferred date and activity. Support World Central Kitchen while solving a murder. Yep, you heard that right. The annual youth group murder mystery is on Saturday, March 29th. This year's setting is a medieval village having problems with their homeowners association. Ticket prices go towards providing food for the people in disaster areas. We close our time in worship today by extinguishing our chalice and reciting out loud these words by Elizabeth Sella-Jones. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we meet
Together again. May we all remember that none of us is outside the circle of love, that we are all connected by covenant, that we are together because we choose to be together, even when it's messy, even when the circle's not actually a circle, and even when it's a little wonky, because we are too. Get a snack, come back in, let's talk about hard things.